Alrighty, everybody. All right. Good afternoon. It's your neighborhood-friendly Scottish whiskey hobbit, broadcasting to you live from our grandiose and epic back deck here. Although we're doing this kind of other camera angle, facing towards the home instead of outside in our glorious backyard. I hope that you guys have had a great summer as we get very, very close to the fall months. It seems like the older I get, ladies and gentlemen, I blink and it seems like time just flies. So everybody, first of all, thanks for tuning in. I'm pretty excited for this week's review, and I've got to say, I have a feeling like I'm either going to love this dram or hate it. And it does have a really interesting and complex history, which I won't have time to talk all about just because I want to get into the meat and potatoes of the review. But this is Canadian Club 100% Rye, Canadian Club 100% Rye, single grain Canadian whiskey. So, Canadian blended whiskey is typically an amalgamation of corn, wheat, rye, and malted barley in the mash bill. But apparently, though, this is saying it is not a blended whiskey. This is saying it is 100% rye in the mash bill. Now, making it thus a rye whiskey. So, get away, fly. Got a fly on my drink. So, you know, Canadian Club here, it says since 1858. They've basically been one of the earliest brands, if not the earliest brand of Canadian whiskey in the American market. Obviously, 1858, about 2.5, 3 years before the American Civil War. So they've been making whiskey for a really long time. And because I'm doing this whiskey review out here, and we have heat indexes of around 100. I'm water, 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 hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. So they have a really long and proud tradition of distilling. Now, this does say on here that it's imported and bottled in Chicago, Illinois. It says it's spicy and smooth with the hallmark smoothness of Canadian Club. Not to go into history rant, but during Prohibition, guys like Enoch Johnson, who was the political boss and organized crime boss of Atlantic City, New Jersey, people like Johnny Torrio and Al Capone in Chicago. Last year I reviewed that George Remus bourbon from Indiana that's named after George Remus, one of the biggest bootleggers. I guess what I'm saying is all of these guys, Canadian Club, they were an immensely popular brand in the United States for both their Canadian blended whiskey and their rye here. These were a staple of a lot of those illicit Prohibition speakeasies 102 years ago. And it's really interesting because, you know, all that stuff was coming across from Canada. There's a book called The Boardwalk Empire that talks a lot about this, of which that wonderful HBO crime drama produced by Martin Scorsese and Terrence Winter, which are huge legends. But anyways, I guess, so I'm rambling. I'm just throwing out a bunch of history there. But this is an iconic brand. Now, that being said, I say iconic, it has a rich tradition, but this is kind of known. My supermodel redneck bride was a bartender before COVID, and it's very fitting that a Scotsman like me should marry a bartender. Sorry, new writers, I'll work on that. Maybe it's just the intense heat out there. But no, Canadian Club is known as like more of a well. So it's not the highest quality, but it's one of those things where when you're trying to stretch your dollar the most, so it's normally a well drink, so like a lower quality drink. And I've actually never had it before. And again, I just know it was smuggled into the country a lot, and it's been a popular drink. Or I should say, it was at one point very popular. So let's go to the nose, shall we? I'm a history guy, as you guys can tell. Okay, this nose is a little rough here. This nose is a little rough. It almost reminds me of, like, it's very grainy, almost like a grain type of alcohol. I might be getting, it almost smells like lilacs, like the flower lilacs. I know that doesn't make sense, but I think I'm getting like almost like a lilac, like a flower note, maybe some peppercorn in there. And I can smell almost smells like malt. I don't know, guys. I'm really not too impressed by the nose on it. And one thing I will say, I forgot to add this. This is Go Away Fly. This is part of a series that I've started on here called my budget series, where about 4 or 5 months ago I reviewed the famous grouse from Scotland, which is dirt cheap, like around 18-20 bucks, which is this price point as well. That was a blended scotch. I was expecting it was going to be nasty and rot gut, and I actually liked it. But this is a part of that budget series where I review ultra frugal friendly drams and see how do they compare to the more expensive drams. Gonna have some more water because it's like 100 out here. But yeah, I'm really not too impressed with this nose, people. I mean, ooh, this is gonna be harsh. Okay, bottoms up, guys. Wish me luck. I'm diving in for taste. Well, that's interesting. You guys know when you turn a computer on or a video game console like a PS4 or an Xbox and it has to load for a second? That's how man, these flies out here all over the place. Go away. I'm not sure how I feel about this. This is kind of rare. Normally, within 30 seconds, I can tell people really how I feel about it. My first impressions are it is a little harsh. Don't get me wrong. It is drinkable. It's not like rock. It's not really, really bad, but it's definitely a little rough. Okay, definitely a little rough around the edges, a little sassy. There is a spice to it. Now, I've talked about this a lot. And I've talked about how various bourbons that have high rye contents, like Basil's, are spicy. I will say this does have a little bit of a spice to it. But all I'm getting, it's like it punches you with this, I don't want to say sandpaper harshness, but I'm trying to juxtapose an appropriate analogy here as I watch my bird feeders over here. So I'm getting some intense spicy notes. I'm definitely getting black pepper. And then, again, it has this kind of rough, it's a little rough around the edges. Probably the third time I've said that, but it's not bursting with flavor. It could be because in this mash bill, there's only rye, and there's no corn in here. There's no wheat in the mash bill. There's no malted barley. They are claiming it's one grain. It's just rye. Okay, I've identified something else here. There's almost like this mesquite or hickory flavor. And to me, I feel that's extremely strange because it's not a smoky, when you think of mesquite and hickory, you think of like a smoker. I don't know where that flavor's coming from, but I'm getting black pepper. I'm getting mesquite and hickory, and almost like I don't know if it's even charcoal, but it's got this wild zing at the end that's really hard for me to put into words. Now this very sassy dram, this was on sale at the Price Chopper down the road from my house. It's normally around $22, $23. It was $17.99. So on sale, I mean, it's pretty cheap. It is drinkable. It's passable. It's passable. I mean, for what I paid for it, I'm not going to really complain a whole lot. Now, a lot of people, as I watch the birds at my bird feeder here, while I do the review, a lot of people have used Canadian Club for mixers. And again, like I said, during Prohibition, you know, all the organized crime, you know, Johnny Torrio and the Purple Gang and Bugsy Siegel, all those 20s gangsters, they were importing a bunch of Canadian Club. They were importing illicit scotch. A big. No one asked for the history lesson, but here it goes. The Great Lakes, especially, they were running a bootleg stuff over from Canada. But this is a well drink for bartenders. It is considered lower quality. But again, this brand has been around since before the American Civil War, and it catched on early with Americans. Americans like our whiskey. Now, people of my generation, I've never heard of anyone my age drinking this because it is lower, it's bottom of the shelf. But again, I wanted to do this budget-friendly series because I thought to myself, the average price of a bottle in my collection, I have a huge collection I've been building since 2018, 2019. You know, the average price is probably $70 to $80. Okay, probably $75. This is significantly cheaper than that. It's normally around $19.99 to $23.99, and I got it on sale for around $17.99. So I'm not, that's another thing. When I do this review, and when I give it the score in a moment, I mean, it's drinkable. But when I give it the score, I'm going to take into consideration how much I spent on it. So, to give the Canadian Club 100% rye, single grain Canadian whiskey, 100% rye, single grain Canadian whiskey, I would give it, for taste, for quality, for smoothness, for bang for your buck, I would give this about a 70 to a 73, so we'll say a C minus. I'm going to give it a C minus, and I'm tempted to go a little lower and do like a 67. Actually, you know what? I'm going to say between a 66 and a 71, which is a D plus to a C minus. I think on the channel that's the lowest score I've given everything, but I don't want my viewers to come away from this video saying that you know, it's terrible. If you do not have a lot of money and you want, in this case, a rye whiskey that you can sip on and enjoy, then you know what, I think, and again, if budget is your main concern, it's passable. Okay, it's passable. It's definitely not my first choice. But I know I said a week or two ago, before I did that cigar video last week, I said, you know, I need to do more rye whiskeys. And to be honest, shame on me. On special occasions, I love Canadian blended whiskey like Crown Royal. And I love the Kirkland blended Canadian whiskey. But I sadly, I've never actually done a blended Canadian whiskey on the channel, but I know I mentioned I needed to do more rye whiskeys. Well, ta-da, here's a rye whiskey. And just because I'm Scottish and sassy, beautiful women are magic. But when you reach early manhood around 21 years of age, I highly recommend getting married. It keeps you out of trouble. All right. So when I say stuff like that, you know I'm Scottish. Everyone has different paths in life, okay? There is no, not to ramble on here, what's correct for me in my life may not be correct for my viewers, but I definitely state my opinion on here because it's my YouTube channel. Quite frankly, as Scottish as I am, if I don't talk about how beautiful my wife is and how she's the best thing to ever happen to me, also tied with my wonderful company, working there, having a career there, just the #1 place to work at and shop at in America. You know, basically, if I don't mention that in every video, then I feel like I'm derelict in my duty as the Scottish Whiskey Hobbit because I'm extremely high energy and intense. So, but anyways, thank you guys. I ramble on. You guys know me, I ramble. This heat out here too, I mean, it feels like 100 out, 101. But my wife, my wonderful company, my house, the fraternal organizations and charity organizations I'm a member of, and my family are all, and my family and my cats are all the best things to ever happen to me, and I think every day is a blessing. What do they say? The current moment is a gift, which is why we call it the present. Okay, I'll stop being a philosopher here. You guys don't want to hear me ramble. This is a long one here. This is a long review. I was feeling a bit chatty. But yeah. All right, so, gosh, it's hot out here. Damn it. Pardon my French. It's really hot out here. So, again, Canadian Club, 100% rye, single grain Canadian whiskey. I give it a D- to a C+. I'm sorry. I give it between like a 60, what was that? Like a 66, 67, and a 71 or 72. So we'll say a D+. We'll say a D+ to a C-. That definitely is the lowest score I've ever given anything on here. But again, for what it is at that price point, I mean, and especially if you're going to mix it, I'm drinking it straight, so it's kind of raw and in my face and intense. But if you had this in a mixed drink, they probably, depending on who we're talking about here, they may not be able to really detect how rough it is. You know, I do like my whiskey a little rough and sassy if I'm watching hockey. Go St. Louis Blues, go Toronto Maple Leafs. So this might be a good whiskey for when I'm out watching my birds, my bird feeders, my hummingbird feeder, my other bird feeder. Got this. I take care of stray and neglected community cats, feral cats, as well as the non-feral community cats, and I work with a couple of different nonprofits, including Kitty Cat Connection, Inc. They're a 501(c) registered charity. We also support Sheridan's Second Chance Cat Rescue. I used to work at a shelter in Wichita trying to save cats at a very high-kill shelter there, and Sheridan's Second Chance Cat Rescue, as well as Kitty Cat Connection, Inc., both would step up to save lives. So please support those local animal charities. But yeah, I hang out here with the birds and the stray cats, and I know the two don't mix well, but I have my bird feeders about 7 feet 6 inches off the ground, and I found if I keep the stray cats fed and give them plenty of water, then the majority of the time, not always, but the majority of the time, they leave the bird feeders alone. I'm a softie for animals. What can I say? Well, all good things in moderation, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. This is one of the reviews where I probably spend 8 minutes too long talking, but you know what? I'm about 50% Scottish, and that's just how I roll. Remember the golden rule. Treat everybody the way that you want to be treated. Be polite, kind, and thoughtful. No one's perfect. Just ask my supermodel redneck bride. I'm not perfect. We all make mistakes. But do the very best that you can to put the needs of others before yourself. But also, faster horses, younger women, older whiskey, and more money. And I've said this 3 or 4 times. I've adopted that as one of my sayings. It's from a country and western song from the mid-late 70s. My hero, who spent a lot of time in Missouri, but he was from Tennessee, Tom T. Hall. And the name of that song where he says that is Faster Horses. Well, actually, it's the Cowboy and the Poet. He also has another song that goes, Canadian Women, Canadian Club, up in Brandon, Manitoba, I left 14 empty jugs, Canadian Women, Canadian Club. So that song, it's a little shallow and maybe not 100% appropriate, but the Fleener side, when we used to go deer hunting and come back from deer camp and pour some whiskey, my uncle used to sing it, and my uncle used to slop whiskey or beer while singing that while he'd be cleaning a deer. So, and then my mom, rest in peace, and some of the other, my whole family's conservative Christian, they looked at all this behavior and was just kind of highly concerned. But the Fleeners were good people, but were a little wild, rough around the edges. Some of my friends from church, my amazing friends from my wonderful work, as well as people I know from the Tibetan Buddhist temple, and also my family watched these videos, and someone's probably going to say you didn't need to add that kind of in bad taste kind of song there by Tom T. Hall at the end, but every time I hear Canadian Club, I think of that other song by Tom T. Hall. He was a stand-up guy. But anyways, guys, this has been an extra long, rambling session of a Scottish Whiskey Hobbit. Remember, drink please, drink responsibly, all good things in moderation. Thanks for watching. Please tune in and subscribe if you haven't already. That's going to be about my last alcoholic drink for the day. Then I'm going to watch my birds, watch my bird feeders, and go in and do the dishes to keep my supermodel redneck bride happy. I told her, darling, it's my turn to do the dishes, but I want to have a couple drinks before I do the dishes because doing the dishes is not fun. I don't know about you guys, I don't enjoy doing the dishes. So I'm going to have a little bit of whiskey, and I do chew, as you guys know, I chew tobacco, and then I also chew the non-tobacco, like the nicotine patches. I'm going to put a little dip of the doodah in while I do the dishes. So it's not healthy, but you know what? Nothing that's enjoyable is healthy. All right, guys, God bless. Take care. Treat everyone the way you want to be treated. Be a kind human. I don't know why I ramble so much, but anyways, God bless. Stay safe. Have a great summer. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. This is your friendly Scottish neighborhood whiskey hobbit. I'm tuning out before I melt.